Try this again. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 1st, 2021, 6:30 Board of Selectmen meeting in the McCullough Hearing Room for the first time in a year. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order superseding certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Southborough Board of Selectmen will be conducted via both in-person and remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting may do so in person. They may also watch or participate in the meeting remotely by finding the meeting at www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation can be found on the Town of Southborough's website at www.southboroughtown.com. In the event, despite best efforts, the public is not able to access the recordings in real time via those technological means, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. That being said, I call the meeting to order at 6:31. Before we get to public comment, I just want to welcome everybody, members of the public that may be in-house here with us. It's our first meeting. There may be some glitches to the public going forward. We're crossing our fingers not. But in that event, just bear with us. It is our first time meeting hybrid-wise in over a year. So I thank everybody for your patience as we move forward tonight. First item on the agenda, public comment. If anyone wishes to speak, just please raise your hand. There's no one in the room, but any attendees going once? Going twice? All right, we will move forward. Thank you very much. Next up, first up is scheduled appointments, scholarship committee. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here with us tonight. They couldn't get a quorum together. So they just wanted me to share some information again that the scholarship committee has met, and there is a deadline of Friday, June 18th by noontime. We want to thank them for coming together at the last minute and being able to provide scholarships and making it possible for the kids of Southborough to have the opportunity to get a scholarship. You can find more information on the town's website under Southborough Scholarship Advisory Committee. So again, thank you to them for all the work quickly getting this done, and our students will certainly benefit from it. Next up, draft IMA for Shared Services Health Grant. I will turn this over to Ms. Malinowski.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. And can we bring Dr. Heather Alker over, please? And while we bring Dr. Alker over, I'm going to tee this up. So as you're all aware, we are entering an IMA intermunicipal agreement with three other towns, four including us, with Northborough, Boylston, and Westborough. And this IMA is a work in progress right now. It's to be signed off by the end of this month. And so there's a gentleman that was hired to kind of help navigate through this process. And Heather and I have a meeting with him next Monday, as well as the other towns. And the Board of Selectmen will be signing off on this agreement. So I wanted to bring it to your attention and solicit any questions, feedback that you have on that by this coming Thursday. There are a few things that I just wanted to point out, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Alker to talk about the shared service piece of this. But if you'll notice that there's a quorum or there's a representative from each town, so there being four towns. So I'd asked if there's a tie, how they would operate, and it would be as of right now, it would be a Roberts rule where a 2-2 tie would defeat the motion. So that was the answer on that one. And then the other piece in here is you'll notice that any fees that are generated by the municipality, the fees will stay with the town and go into the general account there. So it will not be tied to the employee who is servicing that particular town. So for example, if we had an inspection done by a Northborough employee and there was a fee generated, that would still stay within the Southborough general account. So Heather, I'm going to turn it over to you and just give us 1 second while we switch over the speakers so that we can hear you in the room. I'll give you a thumbs up when we're good.
All right, hi, can everyone hear me? I'm coming in from home. So I hear my neighbor trimming their hedges, but anyway, my house is quiet. So I want to give you just a little background on the shared services grant. This was actually a line item for $10 million in the state FY 2021 budget. So this is a line item that was put forward 2 years ago. The state conducted a year-long analysis of local public health. And in 2019, the state published a blueprint to public health excellence in the state of Massachusetts. And the blueprint discussed sort of beefing up local public health. And the grant then was to address local public health, and in particular to address staffing. So this was, like I said, this was 2019. This was long before COVID, that this went into the state budget for local public health to use. And as outlined in the blueprint, they felt the sort of quickest way for towns in our state, public health is authority per each town, was to share services. So this grant was to advance staffing, and the key areas they want to advance staffing was on nursing, inspectional services, and administrative work, as well as some other fine-tuned things like an epidemiologist. So the advancement, the money was to be used for staffing predominantly. So we discussed with local towns, and we also, I meet in a larger group with Metro West, all the health agents. Currently, we're also in a group with the regional clinic with 7 towns. So we have 4 of the towns that we work together with in this application. So the proposal went out in February and the application was due in March. And, you know, we discussed with local towns sort of their needs, and we came together with the proposal. The requested amount is $300,000 per year for 3 years. And that's what we were awarded. That is the maximum award possible. And I think Chelsea mentioned the towns before. Some towns looked into, you know, an agreement with about 8 towns, but then that $300,000 doesn't go as far. The minimum number of towns is 3. So we applied, it's 4 towns. And again, this was for shared services. It's not creating a regional authority for our towns. It's about hiring staff to meet public health regulations and public health needs in the towns. Within the town, each town discussed their needs. We did not as much see need for administrative, but we focused on inspectional services and nursing services. So the biggest line item budget with the 300,000 was the nursing, which is 1.5. So a nurse and a half to be spread equally through the 4 towns. Public health nurses have a lot of skill set and are able to advance many different sort of areas of public health. Inspectional services, this was the second biggest item in the grant, and the needs for Southborough are a little different because we're a septic town. So the inspectional services in the shared service grant will cover food inspections. We don't have a ton of restaurants in Southborough, but we definitely have some, and we'll cover housing. Those are rare housing inspections, but there's some. So the inspector will be covering all 4 towns in those disciplines. So our inspector in Southborough will have more time to commit to the septic inspections. that's sort of the background. If
Thank you. And the only other thing that I'll add to what Dr. Alker said was that the gentleman who's kind of coordinating this effort on behalf of all four
Robichaud
towns
from
is,
Central Mass Regional Planning
solicited
Connor.
feedback on what the nursing needs were for each town. So that's kind of still a work in progress on, you know, each individual needs and then how does it fit into the 1.5 FTEs.
Right, I submitted for our town. Yeah, I spoke with Leslie and Youth and Family Services. I did reach Sarah today and yeah, with our.
So if we can just get any questions or comments from this board this week so we can bring them to our joint meeting with the other towns next Monday, kind of flush that through. And then at the same time, we'll have council review this on Southborough's behalf. Does anybody have any questions?
All right, why don't we just go down the line? Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you, Dr. Elker. So we'll just go straight down the line. Obviously, Chelsea, you're all set. Marty, do you have any questions?
A very basic question. I see this primary document is and it in somewhat general terms sets out the parameters of the services and the 1.5 for nursing. Is the expectation that the decisions will be made on paper or through some sort of collaborative process? Will there be another document that has to be generated to set out, you know, Northborough is entitled to this, Southborough is entitled to that, or is that
I mean, there's a
still in the
line item
process of being
budget.
worked out?
There's a line item budget that was submitted. There was a line item sort of budget that says, you know, inspector, they're going to be hired by Northborough and they're going to cover the 4 towns. And how much actual dollars for that piece.
Again, just to follow up, but for instance, for the nursing, is the decisions about is the decision about what the services will be
Oh, I see.
going to be covered by another document that's going to be generated, or will there be ad hoc decision making and just sort of as needed the 4 representatives will be making a decision? How, just curious as to what the expectation is for how that's going to work.
There will be a minimum of quarterly meetings. I mean, the 4 towns will be meeting ongoing because some of the nursing recommendations, you know, immunizations, some of the other recommendations will be sort of emergency response and, you know, respond to the, you know, the current public health needs. So it is ongoing in terms of the description. Okay,
that's it for me. And I apologize if I paused for a second when I was talking. Again, this is our first time through, and there is the timing is big here, and
you guys look great.
Some reverb in our room that you may or may not hear. So I apologize for that whole question that I asked, but I'm all set.
Great. Sorry about that. Dr. Elker, just so you know, you're muted to us until we finish speaking because we have speakers in the room. So if you could just kind of wait until you see us mute and then answer the question. We just don't want to miss anything that you may be saying. And I think that's part of the reason why Marty's question got a little confusing because we missed the first part of what you said. So as we go down the table, if you could just wait until you see us mute after our question, then the floor will be yours. So that being said, Selectman Stivers.
Thanks. I have one question about the insurance coverage, maybe for Mark or Brian Ballantyne. Require $1 million and $3 million worth of liability for single claim and aggregate coverage. I assume we have all of that, and we ought to confirm that we have it before we move forward. So I expect we do, but let's just be sure. That's all.
We do.
That's it for me. Thank you.
All right, and Mr. Dennington.
Yes. I was reviewing the draft contract and looking to understand what financial obligations it imposed on the town, and looks pretty good, and that it doesn't impose much. But I did see it's on the top of page 4 of the contract, it's in paragraph 7.3. The town is agreeing to make prompt payment of invoices, and there's not much clarity about what that means. So I didn't know what that meant, and would just, encourage you to get some more clarity about what that meant. Thank you.
I don't, I can peek at the document, but I imagine what that means is if the inspector does a inspection in Southborough, maybe the invoice to pay for that inspection, but I'll look at that. But the point is to hire staff. So it's money given to hire staff. We're also, with the money, getting some software for food and house inspections. iPad for the inspector to bring with them so they can take picture with that, and then it digitally, records the inspection. And all 4 towns will get licensing for that, but it's not really supposed to cost us money. It's money that's used by our town for public health services. So it's additional money above and beyond what we have as our own town.
Yes, thanks.
All right, and I just have one question, and I kind of guess it ties a little bit in with what Selectman Healy was asking. So it's 1.5 for a nurse. What are the hours, or what is the anticipation for on the inspectional side?
I don't know if it says it in that document, but my understanding is it is listed in the budget, and it's basically the current food inspector in Northborough is, I think, is a very part-time. I'm just pulling this from my head. It's like an 8-hour inspector who does food in Northborough, and they're hiring this inspector to increase to, I believe it's 30 hours. And that amount of hours will have that same inspector cover Northborough, Southborough, and Boylston for food and housing inspections. Westborough joined the group to get nursing time. Westborough has 2 full-time inspectors. So the Northborough food inspector is increasing their hours sort of threefold, I think, and that will cover the 3 towns for food and housing.
Okay, thank you. Because kind of where I was going with this is, if we really don't have as great of a need for the inspectional services piece, maybe could we get a few extra hours on the nursing side? That, again, I wasn't aware or sure if that was a possibility.
Right, and we have need for septic, and I keep saying that, but it's not what the 4 towns are looking for, so. I will say that we will
Thank you. Sorry
try
about
to,
that.
yeah.
Okay, Heather, we're going to come back to you. We missed the last part of what you said.
Certainly, with both nursing and inspectional, we will look to get coverage for when someone's away on vacation, or coverage that way.
Okay, thank you, Chelsea. I'll just see if Chelsea has anything she wants to add to what's been said here. And I thank you, Dr. Alker, for coming tonight.
Nope, that was it. If you have anything you want us to take back other than these comments, we will do that at our meeting next Monday. And then I would guess on the 15th, we'll be having a final version to be signed off on.
Comments to me?
Comments to you. Yes, to Mark. Yes, not to me. Yes. All right. Thank you, Dr. Alker, for coming.
All right, thank you. That leads us to reports. I have a list to go through from the chairman's side. First is the Eagle Scout ceremony. There'll be an Eagle Scout ceremony for Troop 1 on the 13th, time and location forthcoming. There's going to be 8 young men receiving this honor for all the hard work and dedication. Wanted to see if there was a volunteer from the board that would like to attend and present the proclamations, but also to keep in mind the same day as the firefighter memorial from noon to 1. So I didn't know if anyone was interested in attending. It's a great opportunity. I've done it. So I will mute and see if any members have an interest.
Yeah, I've done it previously, Lisa, and I would be happy to do it. I have a potential conflict there, so I think I can resolve that. But if somebody else is interested, I certainly defer to anybody else.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, I've done it in the past as well. I didn't get the date. What is the date of it?
The 13th. Sorry, Sunday, the 13th.
I'm available to do it. And I'm happy to do it.
Okay, Sam, why don't we do that? Are you planning on attending, Sam, the memorial at the fire station?
Oh,
you're muted.
I have a conflict with that day that I'm trying to work out.
You're
so
muted,
if
Sam,
I
sorry.
have a conflict that day that I'm trying to work out. If I can't work it out, I'm not available. If I can, I would go to the firefighters.
Okay, so if Marty's willing and able to attend, we will have Vanessa forward you the information as we get it. All right. Number 2, board liaisons. And this is one of the items that was brought forward from our goal setting meetings. I'm sure that the board wants to continue with this process, so that I'm asking for everyone to submit to Mark up to 5 departments, boards, or committees you'd like to liaison with, and we'll put together a new list. Not to say you won't get the same that you're currently a liaison for, but I think it's a great opportunity while you're on the board to better understand the needs and inner workings of other departments and committees. So if you could get your request to Mr. Purple by Tuesday, the 8th, that would be greatly appreciated. And we'll use that one as well.
Lisa, I'm just curious. The liaisoning, if that's the right word, that I did was different. You know, some either my initiation or the initiation of the department or the committee was a lot. I'm just curious, and I guess Mark, this is more a question for you. Do you have a sense that particularly the departments think this is a good idea? I mean, it seems to be a good idea from our perspective, but what if any feedback you've got for how it's working?
I think it's well received. I think it's obviously helpful from your end because it's giving you a little bit of a boots on the ground understanding of some of the departments. But I think it's also important for the departments to give you the insight as to what they do and make sure you're hearing it from them. Because sometimes it's like you hear things about, second, third hand and everything in that. I think it's good to hear things directly from the department. So I think it benefits both ways.
All right, and I will just add too, as the liaison, I actually kind of teamed up with the liaison from advisory, and we kind of met jointly together, which made it easier on the department heads, so they weren't having to meet with, or committees, they weren't having to meet with a bunch of us at the same time. So that's another possibility as well. Town administrator's contract. Selectman Healy had brought this item up a little over a month ago. Before the board reorganized. If the board is receptive, I'd like to recommend that the chair and the vice chair start these discussions. If you're not, it's totally fine. I'm open to a broader discussion, or if anyone else would like to step forward, that's certainly an opportunity as well. Or Marty, if you're set on doing this, then
That is a no. I am more than happy to have the chair and the vice chair take care of it.
all right, any comments from anyone else on that, or are we all kind of in agreement? Okay, I will take that as a quasi okay. Next update is South Union. We're going to have a broader discussion of the bidding process at our next meeting. But for informational purposes tonight, I wanted to update the board on a path currently being explored. At the end of the last Capital Committee meeting, the committee briefly had a chance to discuss the next steps at South Union. It was not a substantive discussion in any way, but however, the topic of affordable housing came up. The chair of the Capital Committee and the chair of the Shopsy Committee have had a brief discussion, and there's going to be a joint meeting on Thursday with a discussion around whether a subcommittee is formed to evaluate whether affordable housing will be a possibility based on recent developments and feedback. So they'll be coming to the board to update and potentially ask for support and to create a potential subcommittee. So that's just an update. I think the feedback that I know I have heard and on other sources, including my Southborough, was that it was something that people wanted to explore. So that's just one of the paths we're going to take, but we'll have a broader discussion of the bid process and everything to do with that at our next meeting.
If I can, Lisa,
Sure.
is part of that discussion going to include someone from the planning board? And the reason I ask is because of the recent legislation that focuses on the zoning aspect of it. And it just seems to make sense that to tie those together. So that's just my observation at this point. I suspect that probably would bubble to the surface at some point, but I think the earlier we think about that, the better.
No. Sorry, I keep getting this mute thing. So I do think that's a great idea, Marty, and I think that the possibility of doing that. I don't know if someone from planning could make the meeting, but I know that's part of the discussion is the new grant opportunities that are available. So, and the zoning, creating the new zoning district, that's all part of this piece.
So Jesse Stein from planning is on Shopsy. And also, I believe Sarah usually attends the Shopsy meetings from planning. So I think there's that overlap there.
All right, I unmuted this time. Okay, next up, 15 Main Street. This is just an update that I wanted to share with the board. Mr. Purple had reached out to prior chair Healy and myself as vice chair to review the process regarding a demolition delay permit for 15 Main Street after concerns were raised by the homeowner and the building inspector prior to the issuance of the permit. After reviewing the minutes, the meetings, emails, letters, opinions given by town council and the bylaw itself, we supported the building inspector's decision that the 9-month delay required by the bylaw had been met, though we acknowledge only the building inspector has the authority to issue, deny, or cancel a permit. There were some missteps in the process, and I believed that a draft update that was discussed at the Historical Commission meeting on January 12th to the demolition delay will potentially address and correct some of those concerns. But again, this isn't a discussion item for tonight, just an update to an issuance of a permit. And I would like to have the Historical Commission come to a future meeting to talk about how we can better collaborate to help them fulfill their charge. So that's just a brief update on that. And again, that will be a discussion at a forthcoming meeting. Lastly, a Memorial Day recap. The weather held out. Great thanks to the public. It was really an unbelievable turnout. It was nice to see people for the first time in over a year. There was well over 150 people, including the kids that participated. It was really wonderful, and it was a great tribute for such a solemn day. So again, much thanks to everybody that took the time to come out and pay their respects. The veterans appreciated it as well. Members' reports. I have nothing listed, but is anybody?
I have something.
Okay, go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of listening in on the Southborough Stewardship Committee meeting recently. And I heard that Jim Gorse, a longtime member of the committee, had decided to leave town, unfortunately for us, and is going to be not renewing his membership on that committee. And I think it's appropriate for the board and the town to recognize Jim's 30+ years of service to the Stewardship Committee and its predecessors, particularly relative to Breakneck Hill Farm and the town forest property, where Jim has played a key role in terms of trail creation, maintenance, et cetera, and been a major force in terms of the use and appreciation of that open space. And so I think we owe him a great debt of gratitude and appreciation. And it's my suggestion that we write him a letter of thanks from the board, and I will work with you, Lisa, to get that done. So again, thanks to Jim for the many years of dedicated service there. Great to find effective, dedicated, passionate volunteers for those kind of causes. So we greatly benefit from his participation. Thank you.
Great, Sam. Well said. Thank you very much. Any other members have anything they'd like to add under? All right, Andrew, no? Okay, I'm just learning to read the signals being in person again. Okay, that brings us to the consent agenda. Are there any, oops, I'm sorry, I didn't look. Mr. Purple, Town Administrator's report. Oops, go ahead.
Mark, I did not recommend that she do that.
Didn't even have to be a virtual tap on this one. I could actually tap your arm on this one. So I'll be brief, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Really quick, I just wanted to acknowledge we've had a couple of employees in the past who have participated in the MMA Suffolk program, certificate management program, and Tim Davis, Recreation Director, just graduated recently, last week before. They all kind of blend together with town meeting. But he recently graduated, and with a certificate, he is now officially a Suffolk graduate. As part of the program, he also has up to 12 graduate credits toward a master's degree. So it's really a great program, a lot on human resources, budgeting, and general municipal management. So great program. Tim did well, spoke to some of his instructors personally, and actually, Tim met with me on a couple of occasions, talk about some papers and things that he was doing. So job well done. Good to have another Suffolk grad in town. And the only other issue, I sent the board an email about this, I believe earlier or late last week, regarding the One Stop grant. I know that Marika Munsif, our economic development coordinator, she has been putting together all the information for the Route 9 improvements. She'll be getting those to Miss Hale tomorrow, so those can be uploaded. And then I believe that Mr. Healy can help to wordsmith, as he did with the expression of interest. I did meet with Andrew Pfaff from Capital and with Karen Galligan to talk about the Corderville Road project. And we agreed, and it specifically says it in the application, but we wanted to talk it through first, that we would not apply for it at this time because it specifically said if there was not a imminent private development that was going to be supported by this project, then you were not going to get funding. And so I think if something different had happened with South Union, maybe we could have tied that in, and maybe that would have checked the box. But we will keep that in the queue, and we'll look to move that forward. So the grant will be submitted by the deadline of June 4th, and then our fingers crossed, we'll see how we proceed from there.
Great, thank you. Much appreciated. Sorry about that, Mark. Consent agenda. Are there any holds?
A and C.
A and B for me.
Any other members?
Can I hold G just to get some more information about it?
Sure. Okay. So that being said, do we have a motion to accept consent agenda D, E, F, and H?
So move.
Okay.
Seconded.
Okay, seconded by Selectman Healy. Discussion? I assume we still have to do a roll call vote, Mr. Purple, because we are Zoom.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Malinowski? Aye. Mr. Healy?
Aye.
Mr. Stivers?
Aye.
Mr. Dennington?
Aye.
Ms. Brascio, aye. Okay. Ms. Malinowski, you held A.
I did. So row 164 and 173, the amount of the townhouse was $2,030,000. Not 200.
30,000, right?
What?
2,030,000.
2,030,000. Thank you. Yeah. So
23 floors to the town.
Were there any other comments on the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Sam.
192,
Sam, you're on mute.
Line 92, aid has an extra E on it.
Was that it, Sam?
That's it. So move.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Ms. Malinowski.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Is that you, Chelsea?
No.
Oh, it was Sam. Go ahead, Sam. Yep, go ahead, Sam.
Several questions here. One, it says reappointment terms ending 6/30/21 in the right column. Should that be 22?
Yes.
Okay. And second, why are we reappointing Ms. Galligan? Her contract runs till the end, till 6/30/22. So it would seem to me that the contract prevails in terms of her term of her appointment as DPW superintendent, as opposed to having to do each one of these years separately.
This is not for her specific position under contract as the DPW superintendent, but her membership on these various committees, Central Mass Resource Recovery, Phase 2 Stormwater Committee. So it's more the committee work than it is her contracted position.
But there is a line there that says she's appointed as DPW superintendent. Farther down the list, I think. Superintendent of Public Works. Third one from the bottom, fourth one from the bottom. So not a big deal, but just seemed to me to be superfluous. And Ms. Braccio, my other comment was, I'm assuming that we have performance reviews for all the people here that we're reappointing as they may be appropriate. I think that I've been a little disappointed in the past where I've asked for performance reviews, for example, for Mr. Ballantyne, who I think does a great job. But when I asked about his performance appraisal, I was told that that's been done verbally and not in written form. So I would hope that we would be thinking about a process that creates performance appraisals for all the people that we're appointing to these positions as employees, I guess. Should any question come up later, it's a great thing to have in a personnel file, a history of performance appraisals, and you can go back to the file and follow up on the paperwork. And my sense is that there may be some gaps in that process. So I would hope that everybody here has been appraised as a strong performer and worthy of reappointment, which I assume is the case. And then B, I would suggest we think about a structure where we have confidence that we have a performance appraisal file for everybody annually, or whatever the requirement is for people that are town employees that are part of the performance appraisal process. And that's it for me. Thanks.
So Mr. Stivers, just to that point, I know that we did talk about this as a board in terms of my review of the contracted positions. There were two items. One, the board indicated that they would like them to make sure they were done in writing, because there were some that I had done in writing, some that I do verbally. It depended, on the employee. The other piece of it was that the board would have the opportunity to provide comments. And I believe that, both of those things have been done for the employees that have been reviewed since then. We've done that for both Chief Achilles as well as Chief Paulus. And now Mr. Ballantyne, I'm actually in the process of working on his review. So I will be getting that request out to the board to provide comments, and then the same from Ms. Galligan. Both of them are July 1 renewals.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa, can I follow up on that?
Yes.
In terms of, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong. What Mr. Stivers just pointed out, for instance, for the superintendent of public works and Chief Paulus is identified in there as being appointed for the chief of police. I'm remembering back, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, that's sort of a belt and suspenders thing in terms of the statutory requirement that somebody be appointed as the chief of police and somebody be appointed as superintendent of public works. So it's not, I think Sam, you're right, that obviously the contract is the controlling document for purposes of their employment, but I think for purposes of sort of legal designations and everything like that, we have to do it on an annual basis. Am I right about that?
I think belt and suspenders is a good way to put that.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Dennington.
I had a question about the site plan review committee and where it says bylaw, because I thought basically the site plan review committee got abolished. So I just didn't understand what that meant. I guess maybe the article that passed in town meeting needs some time to take effect, right?
The AG approves these, I think, typically. It takes a while. I don't know.
Okay, I just had a question about what the intent was there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dennington. Ms. Malinowski, anything?
No, thank you.
Okay, so that being said, do we have a motion for reappointments of staff positions for fiscal year 22 minus the site plan review committee?
Well, actually, I think I would keep it in there because I kind of raised the question, but it does. I think it would make sense to appoint people to be on the committee until the new law comes into effect, right? It doesn't hurt.
Okay, let's try this again then. All right. Do we have a motion for reappointment of staff positions for fiscal year 22? All
So move.
right, second, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Healy, all those in favor, roll call vote. Ms. Malinowski.
Aye.
Mr. Healy,
Aye.
Mr. Stivers,
Aye.
Mr. Dennington,
Aye.
show is aye. Thank you very much. Next, item C. Ms. Malinowski, I believe you held that.
I did. I'm going to abstain from this one.
Okay, any further discussion on that item? Seeing none. Do we have a motion to appoint traffic constables as recommended by Chief Paulus, term ending June 30th, 2023?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Ms. Malinowski, abstain. Mr. Haley,
Aye.
Mr. Stivers,
Aye.
Mr. Dennington,
Aye.
Ms. Brascio, aye. All right, next up is item G, and I believe, Andrew, you held that?
I'm supportive of the recommendation of the Conservation Commission. I just had a question about, do you know whether the work that's being proposed, this is just to survey the area and there's another phase of work to actually remove it? Okay.
So Ms. Danza had her report in, and it kind of tried to succinctly explain it, but this is just the first step. This is just doing the survey plan in the area and delineating the limits of the dumping area. And then, the next phase is going to have to be some clearing and things of that nature. So we're just at the beginning. We have an engineering article. The board had seeded with $25,000. It's lasted us for a little bit. This amount is really going to finish that off. We don't have anything else that we plan to do from there. Conservation has kind of been paying for some of these expenses, and so we've been trading on and off. This is the last trade-off we can do because this is the last amount we have. But this will keep the ball rolling, and then at some point, we'll have enough information to have the understanding as to, are we capping? Are we excavating? Yeah, that's where the real expense is going to come in. But this is just all the preliminary work needs to be done up front.
So
So-
move.
Second.
Malinowski.
Aye.
Bailey.
Aye.
Mr. Stivers.
Aye.
Mr. Dennison.
Aye.
Okay, next up is town meeting recap and next steps. So we'll start with the noise bylaw. I thought it was a great discussion at town meeting. I thought that the direction that town meeting gave us to bring back to discuss tonight was the next steps on forming a committee to work on creating a noise bylaw that we can bring forth to a future town meeting. There were people that had volunteered as well. So I guess my ask of the board for tonight is if we agree with that path, that we have someone step forward and craft a charge to bring back for discussion and potential approval at our meeting on the 15th. Not that I'm going to volunteer anybody, Mr. Stivers, but I know that have been actively involved in this, and I think that I would like to see you come up with something and bring back to the board if you can by the 15th. And go ahead, sorry.
My internet connection is unstable here. I don't know. Happy to try. As I say, I've tried this twice over the last 10 or 12 years and failed both times. So I'm happy to try it though and come back with a charge.
Okay, I mean, I think it's great. In this way, you can draft the charge and we can redline you. So
I
there
know
was a
that,
method to my madness, Sam. It wasn't as easy and nice as it sounded. So yeah, if you do that, that would be greatly appreciated. I think you have the background and with working with the chief and stuff to craft something. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, it would be appreciated.
happy to do it. And I see the long line of potential redliners out there waiting. So
My expectation is the redlining will be shortening it.
All right, Sam, thank you very much. So we'll put that on the agenda for the 15th. Sam will get it done and get it out to us, and we can discuss it, and hopefully either the 15th or the meeting after, we can get it approved and start populating that committee so they can start their good work. So does anyone have anything further they would like to add on that item? Okay, so illumination bylaw. This was something we had discussed prior to town meeting, and there may be other discussion points on this as well, but I'm kind of focusing on the enforcement piece and how we're going to move forward with this. And I think one of the points that was made at town meeting by Mr. Colery was having the right person with the right equipment being able to go out and document and measure the light. So I think that's something that we really need to think about. I don't know that, as I had talked to the building inspector briefly, and she can tell you where to put the light, but as far as the type of light and the trespasser or what may be coming from that light and measuring it, it's really not something that she's really qualified to do. So I think we need to consider that. I mean, we have the option of, certainly we have a building inspector and a couple assistants, that maybe it's something we could try to work towards putting some form of schedule together. Again, I don't anticipate like everybody all of a sudden getting 1,000 calls for enforcement. And again, it also is working with the homeowner, because the homeowner may not allow access to their property as well. So I think this is a much bigger discussion, but I think we can start it tonight and decide if there's, a path to what the right answer is. So I would be open and curious. We'll kind of go down the line just to get everybody's thoughts, and certainly they may be different than mine. So Ms. Malinowski, how about we start with you?
So I agree with with the comments that Mr. Clary made at town meeting, that we really need to think about how we would enforce this. I'd like to see how other towns do it. Are there, do they hire people on contract to investigate complaints as we receive them? And kind of what are other people doing? Because it seems like there's a lot of towns that are adopting these illumination bylaws. So I think investigating what other people are doing would be helpful.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Healy.
I mean, I agree with that. I think this is going to be complicated. And I think it's going to be complicated because of some of the things Chief Paula said. Some of the things that have been raised at our earlier meetings because of Fourth Amendment concerns about, somebody having the right to go on someone's property, whether or not that becomes an issue. I mean, I think what was said by folks from the planning board and by the WPI professor are not only largely true. I think, 99.9% of the time, it's going to be the case that it's going to be a relatively straightforward process. But it's when it's not a straightforward process that it's going to get complicated. And so I don't have a very good idea right now. It just strikes me as a working group might be the best path here with the chief. Maybe if Mr. Caleri is willing to, I mean, goodness knows he I think he was the person at the town meeting who knew the most about this. And so tapping his knowledge, I think, would be helpful. Obviously, the building inspector and get her input, thoughts from the planning board. I think that the difficult cases are going to be complicated. And then you layer on top of that the applicability is sort of floating because it doesn't kick in, until for most people anyway, until there's an event. So, putting together a plan for enforcement on this is going to be, it's going to take some work. So, anyway, so it's going to be complicated. I don't have an answer right now other than to point out that it's going to take some work.
Great, thanks. Sam?
There we go. Thanks. I think Chelsea and Marty make a good point. I think there's actually interesting similarity here between the noise bylaw and illumination because there's a technical aspect as well as sort of a subjective aspect here. And one of the suggestions I would have following Chelsea's comment that we're not reinventing the wheel here. There are towns who've done this stuff. And I think that maybe enlisting the aid of Ms. Houlihan and the WPI professor, who I think have looked around at what other towns are doing with this, to get some practical feedback from people to say, what have they done? What's their experience been? What kind of equipment have they found necessary and not so necessary? And learn from people's experience on this as much as we can gives us a real head start on it. So that would be my suggestion for a first step. And then I think a working group that deals with not only sort of the more technical aspects, but also has some recommendations for enforcement. Do you need somebody who's an engineer, for example, to enforce both of these bylaws? Or is it something that there's enough technology that's easy to use and that holds up in court if somebody appeals some sort of a fine that's applied someplace? How do you trade off those things in terms of balance between reasonable and getting bent around the technology too much? So again, I would suggest starting with what are other people doing and then coming up with a recommendation that applies as much as possible to both noise and light. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Denny.
I guess the follow-up point that I would have doesn't have so much to do with enforcement, but maybe encouraging the building department to start informing people who, there's a lot of people, of course, who didn't attend town meeting, might not know that this just passed. Is there a way to send out like a mailer to people that just summarizes in a really plain English form what the new bylaw requires, and also stressing that it doesn't become effective until the luminaire is no longer operational, just to start informing people about these. And I thought that one of the pieces of literature that the article proponents handed out at the town meeting, which had a visual showing, this is the type of light where you got to have it pointed down rather than, was actually pretty effective. And maybe as the department's putting together a budget, like I know that on advisory, when we reviewed a lot of department budgets for postage, and you think, what's that for? I mean, maybe one of them could just include the cost of just a simple mailer. And then, of course, that would, they would then might get some calls from people upset to learn about these new requirements, but it is what it is. And it's better to get that information out sooner rather than later. That might actually reduce the number of complaints you later get.
We work with DPW to include that in the water
Yeah.
bills, for example, as an envelope stuffer.
I was gonna say the same thing, Sam. Yep. Okay, so I guess between now and the next meeting, or depending on our schedule, maybe even in July, we'll put together something. And Ms. Malinowski, did you volunteer to do that? Did I hear you correctly?
I thought I heard her, yeah.
I'm like enjoying this very much. Yeah, I think if we could even just see what a couple of the towns are doing, I don't think there's a lot of heavy lifting to do that. And then we can also get a copy of Sam, what you were referring to for town meeting. And, we can kind of move forward from there and decide what steps. But I think probably, Andrew, to your point, educating and doing something along those lines is probably smart. So, okay. So we have our well, Chelsea has her marching orders on that one. Next up, Flag Road HCVE request. So I had spoken to Mr. Linden. He is here. Welcome, sir. Thank you for coming in person. I'm not really looking for any action on this tonight. I think Ms. Gallagher was working on traffic counts, Mr. Purple. And I think we'd like to get those. And I had mentioned to Mr. Linden as well, I'd like to invite him back on the 15th and have Karen come in and have a discussion on this. I had a brief conversation with Mrs. Faniff today, as she remembers everything that happened in this town. So we'll have a little bit more information for her as well. So that's my recommendation on this. I wanted to acknowledge the work that Mr. Linden had done. And yeah, that's kind of the plan. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything to that.
Just a question. Do we, there was Lattisquama was tossed around a lot. Do we know, I mean, is there a way to figure out exactly what or maybe that's Ms. Faniff's role to, that is,
Yeah.
she remembers how that.
So,
Okay.
that I figured was for the 15th. And I know she shared with Mr. Linden as well, some of the information she shared with me today. So I'll have more concrete information to the board prior to the 15th. So, we can have a robust discussion. Go ahead, Sam.
It's my recollection that there is a state standard for that, so it would be helpful to get details on that for people to see and understand, because I think that I've heard Ms. Galligan talk about this in the past. And so regardless of what people may want or think, you've got some analytical base that has to be met to qualify for that. So that to me is the real key question going forward. Do we meet the requirements? Are we likely to meet the requirements going forward? And if we're really unlikely to, then does it make sense to spend money on a traffic study to do that? I think those are the kind of questions that I've heard in the past at least drive that kind of decision. So that would be good to understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. We can certainly get that information from Karen. Mr. Dennington, do you have anything further to add? On Gilmore, I kind of remember how it went, but I don't want to misspeak. So I'll have that included in the packet as well. No problem. Okay, if we have nothing further on that, the next up is a summer schedule. I know Ms. Malinowski had a question on one date. Chelsea, I'll let you go.
Yeah. So September 7th is a Jewish holiday. There's no school that day either. So I didn't know if we could do that the 8th instead, if that's okay with.
Any thoughts on the 8th as far as availability?
I can tell you that, and a lot is going to depend on the what happens with the legislation for the remote meetings and everything, because I know for a fact that I am going to be very much out of state on both September 7th and September 21st. Now, those are regular September meetings, so hopefully I'll be able to participate from, I think I'm going to be out in Colorado, but I know I'm going to be out of state. So again, not going to change the dates. The 8th is as good as the 7th. But hopefully the revised legislation that's being talked about will address and make it easy to continue to participate remotely.
So even if the legislation doesn't come through, we'll still have to just kind of go old school with the remote policy, and you can fill it out, and here's your location, here's how you can be reached, here's why you're away, and participate by phone, or could participate in this same method. You know, we'll just set up a computer screen with your face on it, you know, right at your spot.
That's what you wanted to hear, wasn't it?
No. I'm happy to do it. And I'll pull what Mr. Stivers has been pulling tonight. You know, if I want to go outside, I'll go, oh, wait a minute, my internet is breaking down. Geez, I'm sorry.
All right, Sam and Andrew, do those dates look okay for you? The 8th?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let's pencil it in for the 8th. The only other one I questioned, and I don't know if you picked up on this one either, Chelsea, was November 2nd is election. So we may want to consider the 3rd, which would be the Wednesday on that. If and I know it's kind of hard to look at your schedules that far in advance, but we could tentatively set it. And as we get closer, if there's issues, we can certainly address them.
And Lisa, more generally, is the expectation that the August meeting would be, I can't remember if last summer we had a special meeting to do goals planning, or we wrapped it into an August meeting. Mark is nodding. I'm not sure what you're nodding for.
Yeah.
That yes, we had
Special.
We did.
we had a special meeting. Okay.
We did.
I guess we could do that, or if the or we could wrap it into the 17th. Either way is fine with me.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to certainly get that done sooner rather than later as well, Marty. Okay, any other questions, comments, or concerns on any of the other dates? These will be the tentative dates going forward, going once, going twice, and we are gone. All right, that leads us next to public comment, the final public comment. And Ms. Dunderdale has her hand raised. Let me mute.
Hi there, can you hear me? Hello.
Hold on a second. Hi, Ms. Dunderdale, welcome. You can go ahead and speak.
Hi, hi everyone, can you hear me? Okay. Hi, I just wanted to just reach out. I see that Mr. Stivers is going to be the charge for the noise bylaw, and I wanted to volunteer my time for the committee. Not exactly sure what I need to do to get you my contact information. I certainly can reach out to you at your Board of Selectmen email, and so that you can be in contact with me. So I hope that that we can certainly work on this. I know that there was a lot of great conversation at the town meeting, and I think it is time to get started on this. Now, I did have another question. I had another comment on the light bylaw and the enforcement. And I know that has to be approved by the Attorney General going forward with all of the changes. But it seems as if my understanding, it's already written in there who the enforcement goes through, and it's the building commissioner. And based on the bylaw, I'm wondering if just knowing what type of light bulbs they should be using, how strong those lights are, that they should be able to have a conversation with someone that might be using stronger, a stronger light than they should be, or if there's light trespass, that they can at least reach out, especially if you've already reached out to your neighbor and they're not willing to make a change. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for your feedback. Also, just so you know, on the noise bylaw, we will be soliciting participants to who would wish to volunteer for it. We have to first create the charge. So once that's set, you know, I know you have an interest as well. There's actually a couple people in the room that I appreciate came tonight, Ms. Rosenblum and Karen Mudridge, sorry. Absolutely, you know, once we get to that point, we'll be able to move forward and get that committee populated and start your work successfully. So thank you again for your comments.
Thank
Are
you.
there any other public comment? Okay, going once, going twice, gone. That leads us, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
And, okay, roll call. Ms. Malinowski. Oh, hold on one second before we go there. Let's see. 2 days. Okay, so thank you, Ms. Rosenblum. So the 8th, it's a 2-day holiday. So for enough. Thank you very much. So what we'll do is, I think what we'll do, Marcus, we'll put together a couple of dates, keep it, we'll send it out to the board, and being very respectful of that. Thank you, Ms. Rosenblum. Much appreciated, and we'll go from there. So that being said, we've had a motion, we've had a second. Do we, let's see, Ms. Malinowski.
Aye.
Mr. Healy.
Aye.
Mr. Stivers.
Aye.
Mr. Dennington. Okay. And Ms. Brascia, but before we leave, I wanted to thank our amazing new IT. Jay, I'm not going to butcher your last name again. I should know it by now, but thank you for putting all this together and working to get it so we could be here tonight. So that being said, again, thank you, everyone. Thank you for bearing with us, and have a great night.